In this lesson, we're going to continue painting our realistic skin for our Caucasian female by focusing on the eyes. So let's go ahead and get started. So in the previous lesson, we started introducing a lot of additional tones into our female subject here. We've really started to breathe a lot of light and a lot of character into our female Caucasian here. So what we're ready to do now is just begin refining and detailing this entire head as a whole. And we're basically going to go ahead and start with this whole area with the eyes and the eyebrows, really detailing out the skin around the eyes. And from there we'll move on to the ear, the nose, and the lips, and just begin refining everything as a whole. And so that's what we'll be doing from this point onward. So if we go ahead and look over here in our layers panel, I've gone ahead and created a new layer which I've titled Detail. And on that layer, we'll go ahead and zoom in and we'll begin working on the eyes. Now I think we're at a point now where I'd really just like to go ahead and hide the visibility of our sketch layer. And just doing that, you can see how we do have a lot of rough areas. Our brush strokes are very evident. And so again, we just want to start tightening everything up, and we'll still continue to integrate and introduce additional colors and tones, if you will, as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my brush tool. I'm going to double check real quick in my brush panel. I do want it set to transfer with pen pressure enabled for opacity and flow. And I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in here really close. And we'll go ahead and start with this screen right eye area. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce the size of my brush tip. I think that'll work. And let's go ahead and just begin detailing out this eye area. Now we just kind of dropped in some blue in the previous lesson, so I just want to kind of start tightening up everything. Just kind of giving everything a more solid form. Just kind of cleaning it all up. Now we do have some white areas here for our eyes, but we don't want it just to be white. There's always going to be some amount of color in those whites of the eyes. So I may bring in just a little bit of blue. I may bring in a little bit of green too. Just something to kind of not have it be so white. Because if we leave it completely white, the whites of the eyes, it's going to look a little unnatural, kind of maybe even spooky looking later on. So I'm just kind of toning that down. Again, I'm going to pull from this background quite a bit as we begin to really tighten up everything. As I mentioned before, a lot of your background elements are going to be pulled into your subject. They're going to be reflected in the skin. So let's go ahead and start to flesh out some of these skin areas around the eyeball. And we're going to probably have a lot of warmth in there. So let's go ahead and just sample from some of this warm color that we had over here. And let's kind of focus on this eyelid area. Now we do have a lot of red. If you look closely at your eye, we have a lot of warm colors. There's a lot of blood that flows into these areas where we have the eye. We've got a lot of muscles in there because we're constantly blinking our eyes, constantly moving them around, so requires a lot of blood. Now I'm also kind of thinking about how there's going to be a little bit of a shadow right underneath this tear duct. I'm trying to discern how intense that shadow might be. I'm just kind of grabbing some of these darker colors. Basically, I'm trying to really tighten up this whole eyelid, this whole eye area. Just grabbing some more of that warm color from the cheek. I may want to go down here and grab some of this other warm color, kind of a pinkish color. I'm just kind of working that in. I want to kind of blend some of these highlights. With your highlights, you want to be careful not to overpower the entire composition. You don't want everything to feel too blown out. Sometimes there's a tendency we want to add all these little peak highlights everywhere to a point where your subject could look like they're almost sweaty or wet. So you just want to be careful about that. So I'm going to go ahead and just start off with kind of a darker blue here and start to work in these these eyelashes. I want her to have pretty full, luscious eyelashes. Really add to that femininity of it. I'm starting with blue. I don't want to just grab black just immediately. I always like to have some kind of other color in there. I don't like using just straight up black or white. So this dark blue will provide a nice base, I think. If you constrain yourself just to using black or white, that's not all that's in nature, basically. You've got a lot of other colors, if you look closely, that are there. I'm also going to bring in some of this blue into the eyebrows as well, just as a nice base. And with these screen left eyelashes as well. Just kind of reducing the size of my brush here and there. I'm just kind of going around basically fleshing out the forms of these eyes, just kind of cleaning up the looseness overall. Now in the corners of our eyes, we're going to have kind of this little pinkish, fleshy shape. So I'm trying to kind of establish that. Just kind of bringing some of that around the edges of the eyes there. I'm trying to think about my light again, how that light is hitting the eyelids. Just kind of blending some of that warm color around as well. Now I may want to bring in just a little bit of orange too. I feel like we could use a lot more orange in the skin overall. I feel like we may be a little bit light on a lot of that. Just bringing in a little bit of blue for that shadow. A little bit of that green too. When I think of shadows, I think of blues and purples. But I don't want just that on my subject. I do want that green in there because that, again, our background is primarily green. So I'm just kind of trying to flesh out this tear duct as best I can here. Start giving it a little bit of a shape. Let's go ahead and focus on the eyes some. Right now they're pretty much a flat color. I want to give that some variation, so I'm kind of bringing in a lighter blue, kind of in the center. And we may want to bring in a little bit of turquoise, just a little bit of green in there. Again, the eyes like the skin are very reflective, so I'm imagining there being some green within our eyes. I'm just kind of loosely working that in there right now, kind of building it up. Grabbing some more darker blue, just kind of coming around the edges right there. Starting to flesh those out. And I'm thinking about the shadow as well over these eyes. Alright, I may grab a little bit of black too now and start to go over that blue base. Just a little that I have for my eyelashes. And just start kind of fleshing those out. I'm just trying to quickly add some fast brush strokes here. Just kind of get some of those eyelashes in. And I'm trying to get that faint little edge of skin that we kind of have right around the edges of our eyes. That area kind of in between the eyelashes. Very cool. Let's go ahead and zoom out for a second. Add some of this darker shadow color in there. And I'm trying to get a feel of how these eyes set into the skull. We're going to have a little bit of a drop off right here. Just kind of blending that all in. Let's go ahead and bring in some of that darker color for the eyebrows themselves. Now I don't want the eyebrows to feel like they're just stamped on. So what I'm going to do first is just bring in, kind of rough in these hairs. And I'll start to bring in some of that skin into it. Kind of fade out some areas. And then just kind of build up over that. And we can get in there later and really detail it out. I'm just kind of starting to give it a little bit of a foundation here. Just trying to set it into the skin, really. Very nice. I'm liking how these eyes are starting to shape up. I try not to stay in any one area too long. I do try to move around. Sometimes it's easy to fall into that mode. You want to spend a lot of time in one area, and you can kind of box yourself in sometimes doing that. So I'm kind of trying to think about this shadow right now around this tear duct over here on the screen left. And I may want to I'm just grabbing some warm colors from different areas, trying to work that in. We do have a lot of red around our eyes. Again, we got a lot of blood coming up to that area. Just kind of working in a little bit more orange. I think we could use some orange in there as well. Not just we have quite a bit of reds and pinks. I just think a little bit more orange. Again, you want to have a variety of colors. You don't want anything to feel too uniform in any one area. You do want a variety. Still working on that tear duct, trying to get it just right. Trying to take it in the right direction there. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom out. Alrighty, we're on the right track. Let's go ahead and actually uncheck the visibility of that detail layer. We can already see in just a little over 10 minutes we're starting to breathe some additional life into this subject. So in the next lesson we'll go ahead and jump over. We'll continue working on the eyes, but we're going to go ahead and jump over to the ear and start fleshing that out as well. So we'll see you then.